Chapter 6. Kurt Olson tracks Eva Marie Taffy to her home. Fortune turned quickly for Kurt Olson. His quarry had been hard to isolate, but in researching Eva Marie Taffy, he learned that her house conveniently rested at the conclusion of a dead-end street approximately 200 feet from a circuit of high-voltage power lines. High-voltage power lines. What a lucky break. Power line grids provided an unguarded, mostly unpoliced route that was often underutilized by the general public. Yes, deer poachers and trail bikers and teenage glue huffers appreciated the privacy and tranquility furnished by these roads not often taken. But the general public largely underappreciated high-volume power lines. When Kurt Olson learned that Eva Marie Taffy's house was so conveniently located, his mind immediately spewed ideas. He capitalized on Mr. Patel's economical practice of rendering the Sawmill Lodge floodlights inoperable. Kurt Olson was able to remove a moped from Mr. Patel's porch around 2 a.m. He took the moped back to his room and removed the GPS anti-theft sensor and placed it in his dungaree pocket. He was able to slip the royal blue moped into his trunk before dawn, and he was on the road as a rooster crowed in the distance. A wave of optimism left him feeling warm and tingly. Kurt Olson's first step was to purchase a small gas can from a convenience store. He pulled next to a gas pump, and as he walked into the store, he discreetly flipped the anti-theft sensor in the bed of some redneck's truck. With the filled gas can secured in the trunk of the Nugo, Kurt Olson started his trek to Eva Marie Taffy's house. Kurt Olson pulled off a side road long enough to snap phony license plates over his plates with magnets. He arrived at a strip mall just outside of Oxford, Mississippi, 6.3 miles from Eva Marie Taffy's home. He donned an Ole Miss golf hat and a pair of cheap sunglasses before exiting his Nugo, ever wary of security cams. Kurt Olson hot-wired the moped in a matter of minutes and then removed it from the trunk before starting the engine. Seeing that he had plenty of fuel in the tank, he left the filled gas tank in his trunk. He removed Mr. Patel's helmet from the saddlebag and ducked his head into the trunk before removing his hat and replacing it with the helmet. But Kurt Olson's pumpkin head would not fit into a helmet worn by the diminutive Mr. Patel. A last-second glitch. Ironically, Eva Marie Taffy had led a legislative campaign as a state senator to repeal Mississippi's mandatory helmet law. Now it seemed that the helmet law might actually delay her ruin. As much as it bothered him to do so, Kurt Olson placed the Ole Miss hat back on his head and returned the moped to his trunk. He then darted the Nugo to a motorcycle shop to purchase a new helmet. It would be noon before Kurt Olson got back on track, so he decided to eat his lunch before continuing his recon mission. He pulled the Nugo into Bunny Burgers to relieve his hunger. Bunny Burgers was the test store for Amerijail's first venture into commercial food distribution. It was not particularly innovative from a culinary standpoint. Hepatitis and MRSA and tuberculosis outbreaks had resulted in a class action gold rush and the swan song for dozens of eateries. Amerijail had seized the opportunity that presented itself with the application of strength suit technology to the food handling industry. They purchased a successful one-of-a-kind burger joint called Ray's and outfitted the help with radioactive suits that allow for the dexterity to count money and return change. However, focus groups overwhelmingly reflected the viewpoint that dinner items served by people in protective clothing were largely unappetizing. So, the uniforms were replaced with pink rabbit costumes, and Rays became bunny burgers. Now, Amerijail was enduring a civil war between the PR forces who wished to mount a campaign to remind the public that bunny burgers were actually 100% beef, and the PR faction who wanted to scrap the hare motif altogether. The latter had momentum on their side. Franchises that featured rabbit meat failed as frequently and as certainly as highbrow television. The rabbit stigma seemed strong enough to jinx an establishment that was bunny and name only. Kurt Olson was disappointed to learn that rabbit meat was not featured on the menu, and he was puzzled as to why he had the place to himself. He liked the pink on pink on pink decor. The pink napkins, the pink salt, the pink milkshakes. And he enjoyed the bunny deluxe combo and marveled at the artwork that featured cartoonish rabbits in human clothing, conducting court hearings and board meetings and storming the beaches of Normandy. There was a giant mural that showed rabbits playing football and bunnies leading cheers to a stadium of rabbits dressed in clothing one might associate with America in the late 1940s. This place is the future of casual dining, Kurt Olson announced to an empty dining room at the conclusion of his endeavor. Kurt Olson parked the Nugo on the same strip mall lot where he parked before, and he emerged from the car wearing his brand new crash helmet. He locked the door and then opened the trunk and removed the royal blue moped. He marveled at the sparkle paint for a moment and then slammed the lid shut. In a snap, he had the engine hot-wired and running. He had a recon mission to complete. Kurt Olson rode for about a half mile before jumping off the road onto the power grid pathway. He recognized that he exceeded the maximum recommended weight by about 50 pounds. He recognized that mopeds were not intended for prolonged off-road use, and that the dirt path that ran parallel to the mighty steelwood trees were created by trail bikes for trail bikes and mountain bikes and all-terrain vehicles. He knew that the moped would fall to pieces if he rode too fast or hit the ruts too hard. Kurt Olson had grown up with trail bikes, and he counted on that experience to anticipate and avoid fork benders and axle breakers. He was pleased that he did not see anyone on his way to Eva Marie Taffy's house. No trail bikers, no bow hunters, no game wardens, no kids doing who knows what. No one. Kurt Olson recognized the terrain from satellite images he had studied. Taffy's home would be coming up on the right. At the Taffy Junction, Kurt Olson parked Mr. Patel's moped in a strand of brown grass. He walked the 50 feet to the hedgerow of cedar and mimosa and maple and scrub. He peered through the bushes, and there it was, Taffy's house. Tomorrow, he would camp out here, and in less than 48 hours, he would run down Eva Marie Taffy as she walked to her car, which was now in the driveway. He was still vacillating as to the weaponry to be used, but he had decided that the mission would be completed in roughly 42 hours. That part was certain. Kurt Olson spent about an hour standing in the bushes, listening and observing. He wanted to get acquainted with the noise, the foley unique to this habitat. He wanted to familiarize himself with any lurkers or kids who might toss a monkey wrench in his plans. Nothing. No humans to be seen in any direction. Shady Hurst Drive concluded with lots on each side that were too swampy to support houses. Taffy's house was on Kurt Olson's left. Her driveway, fortunately, was on the left side of someone standing on the street, which would be the side closer to the power line grid. 100 feet. A cakewalk for a marksman like Kurt Olson. Kurt Olson raced the moped back to the street with speeds that averaged 10 miles per hour. The moped ran smoother once it was back on pavement. Even with Provigil, Kurt Olson was worn out. He planned to head back to the sawmill lodge and get a good night's rest and head back to Oxford in late afternoon. He planned to hide in the bushes at the end of Shadyhurst Drive where Eva Marie Taffy resided. He would load up on Provigil, and then, sometime shortly after dawn, well, Leo Kelly is going to be a happy man. And Kurt Olson will return home a champion.